Where's the add people button? What's that? Oh, okay. So that's just shots at me. Remember? Invite people. There it is. Hi. Okay. I figured it out. Not completely dumb. And tell me how the quality is. Thank you. Like, okay. Wait for the other half to show up. Those dogs are going nuts.
All right.
Hey, Justin, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
Oh, not too bad.
Nice hair.
Oh, thank you. It's
It's
my
just
third life crisis right there.
nice. It's funny when you see someone's video and then they look different.
Now,
Because
hopefully, we won't get
you were clean shaven.
views of your nostrils the entire time there.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm walking around.
That's okay. Well, get comfortable.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's a busy house. That's part of the reason why I messed up yesterday. I get scatterbrained and so many things going on.
That's not a problem. We all have life and we all have things that we got to do, so it's not nothing to scoff at. So I understand
All right.
completely.
I was thinking. I was thinking since we didn't discuss it ahead of time, like we're just going off of the video, and I guess we didn't really come up with a format, but and then have a continuation to it because I don't know how. I just said tonight to get since I blew it yesterday. Not that I don't want to do it, but you know what I mean. I just did it quick, and we didn't plan it, so
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess just get into it. But I want to do it serious and thorough, and all that other kind of stuff.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
don't know
sure. And
what you want to call it.
I have some notes written down so we can get in depth for anything that you may have, any questions that you may have. And I think the best way to start is, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you believe in? Why do you believe it?
Oh, okay. Why I believe it. Well, uh, I was born fine. 6 weeks after I was born, uh, I had. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, good. 6 weeks after I was born, I got jaundice, and my parents took me to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with a disease, a liver disease that was new. So this was 1981 because I was born in 81, and so what they did was they found it was a liver disease. They weren't real big on liver transplants back then, so they gave me a J-juostomy. There's some people have a colostomy bag, and
Yes.
I don't, yeah, if you've ever heard of that. Well, yeah, of course you have because you're in the medical field.
I've maintained them. So
Wow. So I had they made a J-juostomy bag, and then I had that for a while, and then my numbers started getting worse when I was, I guess, about 13, 14, something like that. And they said, and by that time they had gotten better at liver transplants, and they said, here's our plan: is we're going to close the J-juostomy, and you're going to get worse, but we're going to put you on the list, the transplant list, and then, that's it. So they did that, and when I was 15, I went into 8th grade. In August, they give you the pager. We got one false page, and then they called, and it was actually like the second week of 8th grade, and I answered the phone real early in the morning. I was getting ready for school, and then the lady was just like, "Justin, it's time." And I heard my mom had picked up, so I just hung up the little phone in my room, and I had the J-juostomy taken down, and so then that was the liver transplant. I had liver transplant when I was 15. We did really well. Woke up, and as soon as how you come into full consciousness, then you get kind of groggy, go back out. You've probably seen people on anesthesia before.
oh yeah, of course.
I got to ask for a notepad and started writing stuff, and I was like, take this. I didn't know what to call it, but take the trach ventilator, take it out, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So they took it out, and I remember before going into the surgery, I remember asking a lot of questions, and I was like, what is that? What are these papers? And they're like, oh, this is, basically, your parents can't sue the hospital if something were to happen, during anesthesia. There's a percentage risk, whatever it is.
Of course.
And, that kind of got to me a little bit. So,
well, anesthesiology is a very delicate field. That's for sure.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just the intricate amount of details that require for an anesthesiologist, down to the contents in your stomach, to race, to ethnicity. I mean, like everything that could go wrong with anesthesiology is the reason why they spend so much time educating themselves in that particular field. It is it's a very delicate process.
Right. True. So actually, something happened during that, which is, I'll say right now, it conflicts with whoever is a materialist as far as materialism goes. But this is what happened, and when it happened, I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't know what it meant until later on, much later in my life. But I remember I had been knocked out a few times, and they used the gas, and I would kind of start to hyperventilate, and I didn't like that, and I would go out under fear, because I didn't like it. And so I chose the IV, where the IV is what does it, but there's an initial thing to knock you out, I guess, until how all that goes. Once you really get under anesthesia, where they do the surgery. Yeah. So anyways, I chose the IV, and I remember saying bye to my parents, and I remember them pushing the needle, the first initial shot, and I remember feeling heat go up my arm, and then when it got to my chest, I went out. Well, I woke up in the operating room, or whatever you want to call it, and I could see, but I couldn't hear, and I could see the charge nurse. I remember her face. I could see the doctors working and doing anything. I don't think that they had cut me open yet, and so just kind of witnessing it. There wasn't much thought going on, but I remember I was witnessing it. And then it flipped around, and I could hear but I couldn't see, and everything was white. I didn't feel the presence of God, or I wasn't floating above my body or in heaven or anything. Didn't see light or anything. It was just white. I don't know how else to explain it. It was white.
Yeah.
And I could hear this kid talking, and I'm conscious, and I become very, now this is interesting, this is my claim,
Hmm.
very, very, the most clear consciousness, whatever you want to call it, I've ever had. And then I'll explain how, and so I'm listening to this kid, and it sounds like a rambling, saying stupid stuff that doesn't make any sense. And I keep listening, and I keep listening. And as I'm listening, I'm starting to think, and then it's like, not an epiphany, or I don't know what you want to call it, not it clicked or whatever. I realize that's me. And I knew that I had separated. This is, just hear me out. I had separated. That's all I knew at the time. There was no Christian context or God or afterlife, any context on it at that time. But I knew I had separated. And
Okay.
when I realized that voice was me, I only thought what I wanted to think. You know how like things go in our mind, and you know how our minds work.
Yes.
There's lots of, yeah. It was nothing like that. It was just I only thought what I wanted to thought, and the only thing that came to my mind was what I wanted to think. It was like, I call it static. It's just a made up term. I just call it static consciousness or something like that. But
Okay.
that's what happened, and I realized that was me, and I had separated. And that was basically my brain or whatever firing and whatever. But I knew that kid was me. How I knew that, and it's one of those things where I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew. I'm like, oh well, it's cool. And I told a couple people here and there, and that was it. So after the transplant, they say, oh, you got hepatitis C with the transplant. Sorry about that. There's nothing you can do about that. And I'm like, oh great, a death sentence.
Well, as far as if you're going to pick a hep to have, that's the one you want.
Right. And actually, I just finished the cure for it, and I'm hepatitis C free. But
Okay, good.
I'll get to that. But so then at that time, I was like, oh yay, a death sentence. And I had lived my life at that time as I wanted to do everything I can to feel normal. And so to hang out with other people, and this was after the transplant, with a transplanted liver, to hang out with my friends and party and drink and do certain drugs, and that I'm going to do that because I'm normal. I'm not that guy with health problems, and I better live my life because I could die because I have this death sentence. That's what was my thinking at the time in my, after the transplant, in my early 20s. And and I did some really stupid stuff. And then one time got some bad juju, and it almost took me out. And I still didn't really quit after that, but I kind of tapered off. And throughout that time, I was like, okay, I have this death sentence. I want to figure out what happens. I want to look in what happens after you die. Those fundamental questions. What's going to happen to me? Mainly that being the one. So I looked into this. I looked into science, and I got really good into some particle physics and stuff. And I can demonstrate that I understand as much as not as much as can be understood, but I understand some of it. Like it fascinated me, and I can as far as a debate format, if I was going to use this as my hey, what about this type thing to you? I would use quotes of Richard Feynman and different people of their quotes about God, and as far as like, we don't understand this. There's a mind behind it, blah 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 blah. So that's the stuff I got into, and then I looked into a couple other religions, and was just searching, like I said, searching. And I remember seeing Schindler's List, and I saw the depiction, or in the film or whatever, of Jewish adults standing in line nude with their children, and they're about to be killed. They're about to go into the gas chambers or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that messed with me. And I said, so you're telling me, to myself, I said, these people stood in line nude, about to be killed, had to comfort their children, knowing that their children were going to be killed, and that's it. We die, and that's it. There's no justice. Hitler, whoever, gets away with it. I said, no, there's no way. That made me look even farther So I continued my search. An evangelist came to my door one time, and he's like, "Oh, tell me all about Jesus, and are you ready to accept him and all this stuff?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know. I just really don't know." And nothing happened. So I started working with this guy. This guy got hired. And it's funny, the boss and the general manager were making fun of him, and they're like, "Yeah, we hired this guy, and supposedly," and they do the little quotation, "he's a Christian guy. Oh, supposedly he's a real Christian." And they were just like making fun of it. So I started working with him, and he would have his Bible, on the counter at work with what we do. And we just get into conversations sometimes. And then I started talking about like truth and something about, what is truth, and is there such thing as truth? And then he quoted,
Well, what is truth to you?
"What is truth to me?"
Yeah. What is your definition of truth?
I would say something absolute. I'd have to think about it to get a good definition, but
I could tell you my definition, see if you agree with me. I believe that truth is that which comports with reality.
yeah.
And for me personally, I want to believe as many true things as possible and unlearn as many false things as possible. And I want my internal monologue of reality to match the external one. I want what I perceive to be real to actually be
Gotcha.
real.
Yes, of course. Right.
Go on.
Right. Okay. So anyways, yeah, I just said, what is the truth? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, like that truth, what happens after we die, and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, he quoted John 14:6 to me just randomly. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I said, "Oh, wow." And that struck me. And I immediately thought, I said to myself, I said, "Okay, well, you got this guy in this book claiming this." I knew it was a bold claim. I said, "That's a bold claim. This guy, you know, he's saying something really big. He's saying, monumental words." And I said, "Let me look into this guy and see who he is, see what he's about." And it just kind of went from there. And I get, spoke to me, or whatever you want to call it. And then I just, I believed it, and I said, "Let me go with this and see where it goes." And it went from there. And I could tell you all kinds of stuff after that, supernatural stuff, which is actually funny what we're going to be talking about. But
Of course.
stuff that happened, and went on and got into the faith and got serious about it. I've had lots of things happen, blah blah blah.
Did
So I
you
got
have any upbringing that had let's say, previous Christian parents or?
I had the every now and then Catholic church parents that didn't teach anything, maybe a little Sunday school. I had a grandma, my grandmother who's still alive, was a devout Catholic,
Mhm.
and she would say something about Jesus here and there, and and one of the things that I said to myself back during that time was, "Okay, this man died on the cross for people or their sins or whatever." I said that makes sense, that I not as I just, I could see that, but I didn't like, or being skeptical about whether it did or didn't happen at that time. So, but she didn't, she would talk about miraculous stuff, and people in the family would make fun of her and stuff. I didn't really think anything of some of the stuff. I was like, yeah, nah. And
Okay.
even and now stuff she says, I don't. I'm like, nah, sorry, I don't know about that. But anyways, so that's the upbringing I had. So my parents were not even, they weren't practicing Catholics, but it was church every now and then, and I just wanted to get out of there.
You're Christian Easter Christians, Christmas Easter Christians, if you will.
Yep.
Okay.
So then I had cancer, the thing on my face. I had melanoma, and I did all that. Whoever says to this mountain, be removed, and did all that stuff. And my pastor's like, yeah, you might not want to do that. You need to go get it checked out. And there's a whole supernatural story thing that happened with that, and it wasn't a miraculous healing, but it was. I can, if we ever get into it, or if you want me to say it right now, I could. But anyways, obviously, it didn't miraculously go away. So
Right.
they removed it and put shoulder skin right here, and did the radiation and stuff, and then it was over with. So then I got these checkups, And years later, I go to a routine checkup actually for my liver, and they're like, they just come in, and it's one of those things where the doctors are standing there, and it's like, and they all stand there, and they're like, we found an 8 centimeter mass in your chest. You need to go to MD Anderson immediately, get that checked out. And the doctor, they had seen something. They thought maybe it was just a lymph node that was swollen because you were sick. And I refused. I was like so tired of medical stuff because I had so much, surgeries in my life. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to do all this stuff. And it turned
I can
into,
imagine it getting exhausting. You've been through
yeah.
much.
And melanoma. So it was melanoma and it had spread, and it was next to the heart and lung, inoperable. And, it was pretty grim. And, I, of course, leaned on my faith and all that stuff and a lot of prayer. And my situation, it has it's not one of those, those Bible miracles that's just so blatantly obvious in your face.
It's not at least Stoneking miracle.
Yeah, it's no, yeah, it's not. And they did chemo that worked, and it stopped working, and then they finally got me on immunotherapy. Now here's the thing, is immunotherapy is going to boost your immune system, hype it up. And they said, well, your liver's not yours, it might reject your liver, then you can lose your liver, then you're going to die, but we have to do it. And then they did it, and 2 weeks went by, and all of a sudden my side swelled up, my liver itself swelled up, I could feel it in my side, and it was really bad. They couldn't figure out what it was. They took biopsy. But it's not rejection. We don't know what it is. And finally, they said Hep C viral count, and they said your viral count is elevated. It's going up and up and up. Your hepatitis C has acted up now, and it acted up, and got really hairy there for a while. And that part is pretty miraculous, because I'll just it had this huge ups and downs, and then the doctors would come in and be like, "Oh, we can't believe it. Your numbers are going down." I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, praise God, blah, blah. And then I go home, and then I have to go for blood work like every 2 days, right? Because it's a big deal. And then they're going back up. Yeah, the numbers are going back up, and the lady's like, okay, if they go back up, you're going to have to come back to the hospital. And then I'm in a position, I'm like, okay, so now I get the rug pulled out from under me. I'm strolling along, and I'm getting healed. Praise God. And then now the rug gets pulled out from under me, and that was really, 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 really tough. And that's when it really didn't look good, and it just started going away, and the viral count started going down, and all the steroids started getting lowered, and all this kind of stuff. And then the liver has been restoring and restoring and restoring, and the cancer has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the immunotherapy tends to have like a 2 to something year, because I only got 2 injections total. And anyways, they're gonna, upon 5 years out, they're gonna put my case in the New England Journal of Medicine, because it's so, it's so awesome, and whatever, and to help other people, blah blah blah. So that's just like my life experience part. And now, as far as the faith goes and all the things in there, maybe you could get into that at some point or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think I got a fairly good
you can
understanding on where you're coming
yeah,
from and what you believe. So
but that, no, go ahead. Yeah,
I
just
was going
ask
to
me.
ask
Yeah, ask me questions. That's good.
that. So you stumbled across my video, and you clearly had an objection to it.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the root of that. What do you feel? I mean, did you watch, first of all, I mean, the average viewer of that video views that video for 4 minutes.
That's pretty.
It's not very objective. So if the average viewer is viewing it for 4 minutes, and the amount of comments that I've received, the amount of negative feedback that I've received is definitely out of proportion to that. So it shows that the majority of the people who view the video, who comment it, and who dislike it, aren't actually watching the video.
Yeah, I agree.
So did you watch it through and through?
Now, what happened is just like you said, it's like a trigger. You assume, because I think I saw it from you first, and then no, maybe I saw, I saw it on Facebook or something, not your thing, that his story or whatever.
Yeah.
I just saw one of the versions. There's different versions. The one where he's at the UN or whatever. And from all I knew about him, from what he said, that sounded cool. And I'm like, okay. And
Right.
so
And
I'm gonna get into psychology.
and I have plenty of the stuff as far as the validity of the UN speech, because that's where the majority of a lot of people have cited, because a lot of people, he has several million views on the UN speech alone, and a lot of people don't know, why was he here? Why was he doing a UN speech?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you know?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I read. I forgot.
Okay.
I think I read.
But the majority of people don't know why he was there. They don't know the context of the UN. They just think, okay, UN, that must be a really big deal. In all actuality, he was speaking into an empty room. And it was the New York General Assembly. It wasn't the one that people think of when they think of UN. He was a 6-minute segment of a 5.5 hour long, I guess you could say, session, because the topic of the session was building tolerance towards religion to basically combat violence. And there was a amalgamation of many different speakers, from Hindu to Sikh to Buddhist to Native American, and he was the German representation for Christianity. And a lot of people don't realize that he was probably the most insignificant of the speakers there, because the topic was, and at least Stoneking very briefly at the very end mentions what the topic is, but it was a response to violence and building tolerance and seeing if religion can bring a bridge between violence and intolerance. And Lee Stoneking gets up there and he tells a miraculous story and says the only thing that will bring you here is Jesus. And to everyone there who was participating, it was basically along the lines of, Lee Stoneking got up there and said, "My God's better than yours. Here's why." And what was interesting is after, and it was this part that was left out, was the chairman who was responding to it was basically said along the lines of, "I think that wasn't a statement, but thank you for your testimony." And it kind of left everyone kind of it was like, that kind of defeated the purpose of why you were here. So it's a lot of people don't understand the background behind what was the whole UN experience, and they just kind of think, okay, UN, that's where the president speaks.
Right.
So it kind of sets up this kind of false, like, you put him on a pedestal, when in all actuality it was fairly insignificant in and of itself. But he did a great job of presenting it as if it was something more than it actually was. But that's a minor gripe that I have with it. But and that is nothing to do with whether or not it completely discredits his actual experience. It's just more along the lines of, it's disingenuous to kind of think of it was some grandiose event that he was partaking in.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, or I was, saying it triggered. It sounded good, like you said, and I'm all about looking more into stuff in context, because I'm pretty into the Bible as far as context and historical context, and I'm very versed in that.
So, myself as well. I used to teach it.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm looking forward to that part. But it triggered. Here's what it was. In my mind, it was, okay, this guy's testimony sounds great. All I know is what I see. I haven't looked into it. And then I saw you, and then I automatically think, oh, well, he's saying this guy's miracle's wrong, and, there's no God, and whatever, so that's, and that's.
Well, I never said that there's no God, and I just,
I mean,
and I never will say that there is no God, because that's That's a unjustified claim, and it puts the burden of proof on me to demonstrate that there is no God. I just don't believe the claim of gods. That's a fairly big misconception when it comes to what atheists believe.
The claim of gods.
Yeah, or God and gods. So I don't accept the premise that God exists because I don't believe it's managed its burden of proof. It's the same reason why I don't accept aliens or Bigfoot or Illuminati or anything of that nature, because the burden of proof hasn't been demonstrated, and until such time, I'm going to remain in a position of skepticism.
But okay, well that's good because you're making me think. So, but why? But here's the whole thing: is why would it require? Why does it require that? And I propose that it doesn't require that. And but there's a specific reason why it doesn't require that, and that's actually what I said in my first comment. Besides the being rude as I shouldn't have been.
No, it's fine. I've that's under the rug.
It hurts me too. It's stupid. I'm like, that's dumb.
Well, I completely empathize with the fact, because as someone who was formally indoctrinated, I understand that it's really hard to say to someone, I find your views in error, without someone taking it personally. It's very you can't help but have that knee-jerk reaction of, well, if I call your view stupid, I'm not calling you stupid.
No, exactly. That's kind of how I meant it. Even though I shouldn't have used those words, that's how I meant it, towards you too. But anyways, but that's kind of what, when I say why is it required, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like you can't. That I think all of this, what we would eventually get to, is an argument of materialism. I don't know what supernaturalism or whatever you want to call it, but it's a materialist view versus, whatever my view is, because, it's like I said, it's saying, okay, well, the invisible God, as far as his power like that, has to be proven, physically, and like you said, according to your perception, according to your reality. And
Right.
I don't think that that's fair. I think it's demonstrable that.
Well, do you think that positive claims require positive evidence?
Yes and no.
Okay, how would you say no?
Because it depends what the claim is claiming. So right off the bat, if it's something supernatural, then it's not saying, by this means and by this scientific test and by this and that, you're going to find me. It's actually saying, no, you're not going to. It's already saying that. So I guess I'm saying, we're holding it to something that it's not saying it needs to be held. It's already saying, hey, don't expect to hold me to this, because you're not going to find it that way.
Okay, then in that case, do you believe that God intervenes in reality?
It depends what you call reality.
Okay, does God interact in a world? Does God interact with this world? Does he perform miracles, or does he improve the well-being of his believers?
Absolutely.
Okay,
especially the last part.
Okay, so you would be an advocate of prayer then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So you believe that prayer is effective, especially how Lee Stoneking presents prayers. You ask, and even with the due diligence of the three responsive of yes, no, and wait, you shall receive, positive affirmation of your beliefs, right?
There's more to it than that. I would actually say qualifications.
Okay.
It's not. Oh no, go ahead.
Well, okay, so if God interacts and prayer is an effective way to receive improvements of well-being, because that's we can agree that any prayer is a request for an improvement of well-being, whether it be mental or physical or emotional, or like I need help with my health, I need help with finances, I need some kind of improvement of well-being. And
absolutely,
many Christians will attribute that a lot of their prayers are answered in this regard.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
Okay. So if that is the case, then that is a very clear and testable claim. And
Nope.
we can investigate that. Oh, of course you
Nope.
can.
Nope.
So what we could do is we could take 1,000 non-Christians and we could take 1,000 praying Christians and we could compare a numerous amount of things such as health, well-being, mortality, divorce rates, rape,
Mm,
crime. We can
nope.
test a numerous amount of things.
Nope.
Well, why not?
Because you can't. You can. Okay. You can, but you can't. I don't know what to call it. You'd have to. It's really hard because it'd have to be like a long time study, and you'd have to get to know the person and all this stuff. And okay, now I know that's kind of like not speculative, but how is it easy to do? How can you do that? But one of the things I would use more strongly is to say, okay, so what is a Christian? Okay, let's qualify that real quick. Say some core doctrines and
I,
whatever.
I,
Now,
I, my firm belief is anyone who believes in that Jesus is their savior and they accept that as qualifications for their belief in a deity, I believe that they're a
mm,
Christian. Now, that
no,
and it may be too broad, but then again, anything other than that, I feel like is a one true Scotsman fallacy in the sense
is
that
it what?
it's a one true Scotsman fallacy.
Okay,
Are you familiar with the term?
I've never heard that term.
Okay. It derives from Scotsman A says to Scotsman B, my my father's a true Scotsman and he always drinks tea. And Scotsman B says, well, my father's a true Scotsman and
Oh
he doesn't drink tea. And Scotsman A is like, well, your father wasn't a true Scotsman. And when it comes to Christianity, if you want to find out who the true Christians are, well, it's always me, but never anyone else.
no, nope. I know what you're saying, but that's you can't do that. You can't do that because no one Christians, and of course I would say non-Christians shouldn't do that, but you're going to go wrong because the whole thing is okay. So we have this debate right now, peaceful Muslims and all this other kind of stuff. Okay, there's people that don't kill and don't do all that stuff and whatever. There's the Crusades. There's the Christians who killed people and do stupid stuff and make false
Right.
predictions, all that other junk. But at the end of the day, to a certain, I'm sure you're going to bring in some qualifications and as far as to what I'm about to say, but you have to go by their book. Now, as far as logic goes, I would argue and say, yes, you have to. And that's where I'm real strong at. You have to, if we're going to say anything about, you got to throw out, well, this guy does this. And, oh, like you said, oh, well, this guy says Jesus is a savior. No, you got to go by the book, and you got to go by, what
Well,
the
I think
book
we can
says.
all agree that they're all pulling their source from the same book.
Who? Who? The
I mean,
Christians?
anyone who attributes themselves as a Christian is most likely going to attribute their beliefs based on scripture. And
Some,
the
some of it though. But hold on. But some of it. But many aren't going to attest to it. So what I'm saying is, okay, let's say I'm going to say, and I'm not saying this is everybody has to do this, but I'm going to say that a Christian, a true Christian that we would expect to see, testable evidence or whatever you want to call it out of, is going to be an abiding Christian that abides in the Word, because that's their book, and that's what they claim. We can't punish the whole thing because we find this guy that says he's a Christian, but he doesn't know what these important passages say, about this and that, or whatever. We can't punish the rest of it, if you want to call it that. I think punishing is the wrong word,
well,
but for the
there's over 41,000 different denominations of Christianity. They're all
right,
claiming absolution. And I can't sit there and sort through them all to find out which ones the true Christians are. And even with my knowledge of scripture and stuff like that, I can
yeah,
attest that, well, I mean, scripturally speaking, there is reason to believe that they're all Christians and none of them are.
mm, I don't know about
Because,
that. I
well,
would challenge you on that.
well, have you ever watched two, like, let's say a Calvinist versus a Protestant? You watched two denominations debate one another.
Absolutely.
Okay. Something that is very clear is they're both right. They're both
Okay.
pulling from scripture. They're both making cases and points for whether or not, okay, let's say the debate is, for example, does God choose you or do you choose God?
Yeah.
And each one of them will bring up scripture and they'll both make great points and they'll both have rational justification for their views.
Okay.
And they both walk away from the debate right.
No.
But they came to two very different conclusions. And
So then,
this is the only way that I can look at it from the outsider looking in, that there are
okay,
two people.
that's the key word, though. That's the key word from the outside. And I don't mean that as an insult, but that's the key word from the outside looking in, because I'm actually pretty into that debate. But what's funny is I say the same thing. You know, it's like they're both pulling stuff out of there, and I would say the first aspect is, I would say, okay, well, they're having a presupposition, you know, or whatever you want to call it, of what they favor, and it's kind of unavoidable. And so they're going to pull these verses and they're going to say, and you know, according to what they believe, yeah, that's what it sounds like. But here's the thing. So if I was debating an Arminianist, I would say, hey, this is why I believe this, and that, and say mine that make me right, whatever. But then when they say theirs that make theirs right, then I would say, okay, well, what about these? That contradicts, you know, what they're saying. And the more I got into it, the more I learned I didn't know, and just the more the more you got to study it. And you know, doctrines are like an equation. You can't have missing parts of the formula, what you want to call it, and come out with the right answer. And so many people and so many Christians, real Christians and not real Christians, do that. They don't, like I did with your, you know, kind of like I did with the video. You know, it's like there's more to it, and you know, they just don't. Their preference and how they feel, their feelings are guiding, you know, not just their interpretation, but the scriptures that they like, you know, to support, you know, basically their view, which is like called eisegesis. They're eisegeting, you know, the text. Now the other aspect is, and then I'll be done with that part. Supernatural side is, you know, but here's the thing, according to the Bible, a person is supposed to be born again. Christians supposed to receive the Holy Spirit. You know, I can quote the verses just saying what it says.
Yes.
Not saying, you know what I mean? And, you know, about the Holy Spirit and what he's supposed to do and this and that. So if someone's going to go by that, we're not even saying if it's true. If a Christian is going to go by, because this is my whole hinge point, is if a Christian is going to do what they're supposed to do and stuff, they're going to, you know, go by these verses and do this and do that. That's why I'm trying to qualify.
Right.
The Christian, but anyways,
there is no doubt that there's a massive amount of infighting within the denomination. And you have, all of them were claiming absolution. All of them were claiming to be true Christians. And everyone's claiming that you want to ask what's wrong with baptism, you ask the Catholic, want to know what's the Catholic, ask the Pentecostal, want to know what's wrong with that, ask the Calvinist. I mean, it goes on indefinitely. And from
right, okay,
it's really, it's not my problem to pick which one and for them to figure out which is the true denomination and which ones are true Christians and which aren't. I'm stuck with the fact that they're all claiming to self-identify as Christian. They're all claiming that they all receive miracles and the advocacy of prayer. And
but how can you check them though?
And that's what I'm talking about. We can investigate.
You have to pretend. No, but not just from that. But here's the thing that I'm going to claim, the hinge pin of my argument. I'm going to hold to it. Fight, you know, try to defend it as much as I can. But this is a claim I have to people who oppose Christianity, or not. I'm not saying you are an atheist. Is that I propose that you have to pretend to be a Christian before you can enter this debate. You have to pretend to be a Christian, because you have to know what they're claiming. You have to study what they're claiming and what they're saying and all this other stuff before you can.
Oh, and I used to be, so I'm fairly well versed. I understand scripture. You tell me anything of stories, I'll tell you the moral that you want it to be. um,
but
but the thing is, I don't believe that it's a rationally
you don't
justified
believe.
claim.
You
And
don't believe.
well,
You
the
don't
belief isn't
believe.
a choice.
Oh, what? What do you
I
mean?
mean, we can be convinced for either good reasons or
Okay.
bad reasons, but
Uh-huh.
we don't. Do you believe that? I mean, like, you don't believe or not believe that gravity works. Okay, you're convinced that gravity works,
No,
and
no, 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 no. Convinced. I witness it every day.
right, and you know, through your testimony, you come to the conclusion that you're convinced that it works. Now, you
Wait,
know,
wait, 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 wait. But no, I mean that's not my testimony. It's really not. It's way, it's that's not because I had surgery and because of this is not why I believe, why I believe, what I believe. It's not.
well, I mean,
There.
in your personal testimony, I guess is I wouldn't say irrelevant because I'm not trying to discredit your
No.
experience and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, when we're trying to investigate whether or not the people who say that they've received grandiose improvements of well-being when they pray
Yeah.
or they believe in a particular God,
Mhm.
we can investigate that and we can say, hey, listen, if you said the number of people who prayed and their cancer went away, we
Yeah.
can investigate that. Okay. And we could see that, oh, okay, during stage
Oh,
4 cancer,
hold
um,
it right there, but hold it
yeah.
right there real quick. But because that right there is the reason why I went off into my segue, is because that's what I'm saying is to the number one mistake is to take all the people that prayed for cancer to go away and just say, okay, this amount of people did and this amount of people didn't. It's not that simple. That's why I automatically went to what a Christian is and what the Bible says about prayer and all that other kind of stuff, because I'm saying for the Christian, I'm saying that that does matter. And actually, I really do honestly believe, not just in some hokey pokey way, that actually does matter. If the Christian faith, is what it says it is according to the Bible, then that's where the pretend to be a Christian thing comes in. Then there's reasons why these, people who call themselves Christians, there's reasons why they're not getting healed. But here's the kicker: there's also reasons that we don't know,
Okay.
because God
So,
is a person.
right.
So because God is a person, I would say.
Okay. So
Anyway, that's my segue.
it comes down to, okay, so we look at cancer remission rates, stuff like that. And we see that there's a 24% chance of cancer remission rate for atheists and 24% for Christians. Okay. There's no change.
Right,
Um,
right.
and then we can further investigate it and we can bring it down to denominations. Okay, Catholics versus Protestants. Okay, cancer remission rates still the same. Okay, there's no deviation between any of the denominations. Okay, so with this information, it's we can easily say that, okay, we don't see that there's a clear causal link between the advocacy of
I
prayer and
absolutely,
improvement of well-being.
I,
So,
I absolutely agree. But it's way more complicated than that. It is.
okay, and when we're trying to come to, because I don't believe that if the God of the Bible does exist, that he's not purposely deceptive.
You
And
don't wait. What? You
I
don't believe?
if the God of the Bible does exist, I don't believe that this God would be purposefully deceptive.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't believe that he would want to, because if he says it's true that he wants everyone to come to the kingdom of heaven,
Right.
then it should be quite evident and it shouldn't
Okay.
be a mystery.
That's a
And
good.
just like we don't need a science textbook to tell us the sun is hot, we shouldn't need the Bible to tell us God exists. And
Yeah.
it should be quite evident through their believers that they're
Ooh.
living longer, they're happier, they are more prosperous. I mean, it should be blatantly
But
evident.
not.
And
I understand. I understand. But not according to the Bible. But not according to the Bible.
well, I would argue because nearly every single story where God intervenes, every
Yeah.
story, It was a clear
Okay.
demonstration of, hey, you don't believe. Here's what's going to happen. Now we have believers. Okay.
Wait, wait. Oh, like okay, so what you're saying, there's a consequential, if you don't believe in me, I'm going to send you to hell, therefore you believe.
No, 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 definitely not. I'm talking things along the lines of
Okay.
when I don't remember the king, but he put three people in a fire and they weren't burned at all. Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
or um, all through Exodus, where the Jews were bumbling to Moses and Moses was performing miracles left and right and demonstrating that yes, of course, I am a vessel of God. Or Joshua stopped the moon, or
Okay.
numerous
So you're saying,
like
yeah. So
Road
you're
to
saying,
Damascus experience is my favorite. Um,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
you
So
have
you're
nothing but story after story after story after story of God demonstrating his existence in a clear, precise way that we can know his existence.
oh, okay. So that's very good. Very good. Now, are there people, are there people that see those things and don't believe? Right in front of their face and they don't believe. Are have the now, but especially in the Bible.
Well, I mean, it's there are people who still believe that the Earth is flat, despite the numerous amounts of evidence to the contrary.
Well, but
Um,
no, no, no. But that's something different. No, I know what you're saying, but see, here's you just went there. You went there to the we both went in the story. That's what we're doing. That
uh-huh.
true or not, it doesn't matter. We both went into the story, but what I'm saying is also in that story is many of these stories is not the Nebuchadnezzar and the Daniel and the fire and that one, the furnace, not that one, but in other ones, especially in Exodus, there's people who they don't care, they don't believe, and then there's Thomas, and he, I don't believe. Show me
Yeah,
the wounds
doubting
in your
Thomas, and
side.
that's fine. And you know what? At no point was he admonished for doubting. And when Paul,
And
he
yeah,
was no longer he wasn't punished for his doubt. He was demonstrated, hey, listen, let me challenge your doubt. I mean, the road to Damascus experience is nothing but, hey, I don't believe that this Jesus guy exists. Okay, I'm going to go find him. Before, when he was Paul,
mhm.
um, I mean, Saul or Paul. Anyways, um, and before he became the apostle, I mean, it was a very clear demonstration of, okay, yes, I exist. And, you questioning it is fine. We
Right.
have the epistemological uh, verse, 1 Peter 3:15, that doesn't admonish questioning in any sense.
Still there?
Yes.
Okay, what do you mean doesn't explain that? The First Peter doesn't admonish what now?
1 Peter 3:15 is one that is very clear. As long as you're having within good hearts, it's no problem questioning these things. Now, you're saying that people won't witness these miracles and stuff like that. I mean, parting the Red Sea. I mean, that is there was no question. Nobody in Exodus was like, "Yeah, I don't believe that."
Okay, so then that tells you though. No, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, see, there's the kind of the materialist bias in a sense, maybe aware or unaware, because it stops at, see what you just showed was, you're talking about happened. So yeah, you're right. No one could deny because they saw it, like you said, the Red Sea part. Yeah. Hey, did the Red Sea part? Yes. 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 Yes.
According to
Yes.
the tale, yes.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah. Do you? And I'm pointing behind the phone where you can't see.
Yeah.
Do you want to follow this guy? Okay, God, do you want to follow him? Hey, he says leave Egypt, leave this behind, go into the desert where there's no water, where there's no food and all this stuff,
Right.
you know, obey me and all that. Now, see, now that's different though. That's for a different reason. But like you said, if you go back and ask these guys, and because I was bringing up the people who didn't believe, because it says even the demons believe and they tremble, assuming that it's true. But I think what's happening is we're talking about two different kind of believing, I guess. That's where faith comes in, because faith is from the outside looking in. If I were to explain to an outsider, it's not blind faith. Sooner or later, you're gonna have something, some kind of knowledge, or yeah, everybody's going to want to experience something, you know. But faith is more. It's more than believing. Hey, I saw those towers fall down. Yeah, I saw them. But believing in God is not just, you know, believing that he exists. And I'm saying that's what the issue is. Whether we want to believe it or not, or accept it or not, is it's that. It's not whether, you know, that happened. Though the Red Sea did it part, yeah. But because the example I was using is, yeah, the guy still rebelled against him and said, yeah, we don't care, whatever. Free will, free will.
Well, I mean that I think that was an amalgamation of a bunch of different things that could go more depth into. But I want to just like kind of backtrack into you were saying, it's supernatural, we can't demonstrate and stuff like that. When I feel like if you can't demonstrate it and we have no evidence that it exists and all it is requirement of faith, then how do we know that it's valid or justified?
It's a good point, and I don't think it's all faith as far as that goes. As far as because I do think there are actual supernatural miracles, and I would even venture to share you the link, and you can even do a piece on it if you want. But there's one.
Well, I mean, we're here talking about the one miracle, so let's talk about this miracle, the one that
No, well, yeah, but that's not what my reason for my objection and then wanting to debate was not really about whether that really happened to Lee Stoneking, because you're and like I said, immediately I said, okay, I think that you are trying to that I was thinking that you're using this to say that Lee Stoneking's case with the holes in it, that it just doesn't really do it. It's not, it shows, it's one of the other things that shows, God is not real, or whatever, or he wasn't
well,
healed.
no, I mean it's more along the lines of it's I'm just investigating the single claim that a supernatural event happened when all evidence points to a very naturalistic, very simple explanation with just a little bit of understanding. And
Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
his case is very, I mean, within the contradictions of his own narrative, which are immense.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he is using what would be considered the bare minimum facts approach, where something in his case is a rare one, but if we're just attributing rare to supernatural, then everything's fair game.
What do you mean by that?
In the sense, I mean, is winning the lottery considered supernatural?
Absolutely not.
Okay, but it's rarer than what happens to Lee Stoneking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. From what we see, yeah.
And
like you said in your video, from what you said, assuming that the stuff you said is true, because some people, who's going to take the time to go check everything that you said? And I'm not saying I don't believe you, because actually, the more you said the stuff, it's like, yeah, I can see that, how it doesn't necessarily mean it was just a miraculous deal. That God, the hand of God just changed the cells that could have no way other ways by any medical means changed themselves. It doesn't seem
right.
like that.
And that would be a massively miraculous thing that would have no medical explanation if it had any validity to it. But in his own narrative, too much of that, even the DNA thing that was changed and rewritten, doesn't make any sense. And even within his own testament, okay, he said, okay, we had a DNA test that was done to you. He was saying the doctors just did a random DNA test. Okay, these things cost thousands of dollars. Last I checked, they lowball at $3,000. Oh, we're just going to do this for freezy, okay? And he had no prior test done to compare his previous DNA to the new DNA, because his EH803 genetic marker was changed to make it seem like that there was no cardiac infarction, when if you didn't have a previous one done, how would you know that actually affected? The doctor that he cited as doing the procedure wasn't an actual doctor. He was actually a nurse practitioner who was involved in the UPCI organization that he is affiliated with. It didn't And when I commented on him stuff like that, the doctor, the nurse practitioner, was it Jeff Young Jr. stated that, yeah, I'm no longer affiliated with them. I have no comment. And he has patient HIPAA things that he has to
Yeah.
protect, and I completely I'm there as another medical professional. I completely understand. But the thing is, when it comes to the supernatural claims that it was associated with it, he was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's not enough. Maybe it's not enough to say you're a liar, but on the other hand, like you said, it's not enough to convince either.
oh, it's in the contrary when we're finding very very damning holes in the fact that he's calling people who are doctors who are not actual medical doctors. He is using people who are within his own organization and not mentioning it. He's like, oh, this great Jewish doctor. No, he wasn't a Jewish doctor. He was a UPCI Pentecostal friend of yours. You failed to
Oh,
mention that.
wait. He's a Pentecostal?
Yes.
No, I wonder. Okay, because that matters to me. It can get. I wonder if he's a Trinitarian Pentecostal or a non-Trinitarian Pentecostal.
Well, either way, I didn't proud him on his qualifications, but it was more along the lines of what his faith was. But I'm more concerned of
No, I know.
he's a medical professional and he performed what would be only considered as a miracle towards an individual doing a DNA test when in fact that he said he never did anything of that nature. Um, where I see that he does actively work. I mean, the guy is he's clearly not affiliated with them for many reasons, but
Wait,
um,
Lee Stoneking is a Pentecostal.
yes.
Hmm, interesting. See, because being the Christian person that I am, well, not even that, but well, as far as doctrinally and biblically, I can see, problems with that, but not just because he's a Pentecostal, but like I said, and it may, if anybody's listening, it may offend them, but it matters whether he's Trinitarian or not. It does matter
Well,
according to. So, anyways, but
I mean, according
yeah,
and for me, that's a non sequitur because if he's a Trinitarian or not, that doesn't disqualify from him from performing miracles or receiving miracles, whether or not his beliefs are
yeah.
Trinitarian or non-Trinitarian. And it
But
doesn't.
why did I say it then? But why did I say it then? Because actually, I would claim, being having the knowledge that I have, that it does matter. But
Okay,
we don't have to get into it. But I really,
right.
honestly,
But when
yeah,
I talk to Trinitarians versus non-Trinitarians, they
yeah.
seem to receive miracles at around the same rate. So
Okay.
and it's not an exclusively a Christian thing. I mean, I've seen enough people die or near die
Yeah.
to have plenty of stories and testimonies that I can bring that would be very much in contradiction to your beliefs. But what I'm trying to get at is like, the core of, this man's beliefs, for example, doesn't meet any kind of I don't see how you can rationally say, okay, I'm gonna trust this guy. Like
No, I agree. Yeah, yeah, I wasn't. I'm not convinced, and I'm a skeptical person anyway. So, just because this guy gets up there and says that, doesn't mean that I'm gonna. Yeah, I mean, no, you're right, because I'm actually I'm very critical about that, and I do a lot of stuff within the church as far as denominations and doctrine and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sensitive to that, because like you said, I just looked at it on the surface. I did not know who the guy was, and I just heard it. But let me cover myself, if I would, because I'm not. But at the same time, I'm not the kind of guy. So okay, let's say I saw his UN thing, and that's all I saw, and I said, oh wow, that's testimony. Praise the Lord. Yeah, God is great. All that other stuff. Yeah, I might do that, but
and a lot of
that
people
dude,
did.
right? Okay, you're right. But if that guy was like, okay, now send me money or come to my church or whatever, I would stop right there and I would say, okay, who is this guy? He said that. That's great, and and maybe some Christian people aren't doing that. And yeah, I did, like I said, I heard his deal and say, oh, that's great. And because I believe that, I believe that God, Jesus, could do that, and that he would do that, and that he has done that. So just going off of that, I was like, oh wow, that's great. But that's as far as it would go. I wouldn't necessarily trust that guy, or if I was going to go to his church or whatever, the first thing I would do is, what does he believe?
Right.
So,
And I think that's irrelevant because his beliefs don't change the outcome of the claims. Okay, just
well,
because.
it depends. But it depends on what we're debating. If we're saying whether, okay, if the whole thing between you and I is whether it was a miracle what happened to Lee Stoneking, then I would say, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I kind of don't think it, based on what you said. I mean, if I leave it at that, then yeah, I don't think it was either. But I
Right,
don't
but
really.
for me, it's like you don't have to. Don't just believe me. Investigate it yourself, and that was the annotation that I put in the very beginning of the video and I made it very clear. At least I was trying to convey that it was really clear. Okay, I was like, don't take my word for it. Come to your own conclusions. And if I am in error, tell me so, and I will remove the video, make annotations, edit it out, or, I mean, completely change my
Yeah,
views based on better evidence. And many people have come forth claiming to be friends of Lee Stoneking. I know him personally. Oh, I was there, like all these other things. And they're like, he would never lie. He's a man of God. How dare you?
yeah,
I've received numerous threats because of it, and it's all these things are. I mean, like it's only compounding the lies and the confusion when people bring in their own versions of the story, and they're like, oh, but then I look at
yeah.
the
I
the
see what you're
viewer
saying.
count, and I also look at how long people have watched the videos, and I'm like, average viewer is still 4 minutes. Okay. It's
Yeah,
a
no,
55-minute long video, if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
And I'm desperate. I've made challenges. I made I debated people a lot on their, just in the comment section of YouTube. We never did a deal. I've challenged more people in the church to debates and like live debates, and I've challenged Dr. James White. You know who that is?
No, no. Almost sounds like
Well, anyways,
Ron Wyatt, but go on.
uh, not to boast in myself or whatever, but the point I'm getting at is that I've had a hard time, and I've been looking for someone to debate, or just I enjoy it too, but I feel like that's what it's just something I feel like I'm talented at and enjoy doing. And part of me was looking at it as an opportunity, and you're one of the few people that is like, oh yeah, so it, that's kind of why I'm excited about it. And like, most of the people, no one in the church, no one of all these videos these Christian people have of like, I know you've heard of the rapture and stuff like that. No one will,
How could I not?
no, yeah, no one will respond. And I'm not rude. I don't do like I did to you, which was really stupid. I don't call them any names or anything like that. I'm just like, hey, look, let's just hey, what do you got? Let's go at it. And I look at it like I'm offering people an alternative view. Say, hey, don't be deceived by this guy, or whatever it is, or hey, consider this. So
Okay,
it
so
it hasn't happened. So, anyways, I'm just thrilled to be able to have a conversation, debate, or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I did assume that you were saying, hey, this means that Christianity is false because this guy's stuff didn't happen. Yes, I did assume that.
Well,
Admit it.
it is it is very clear that it is intended to convince either current Christians or non-Christians that this is my God can do this.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and I am a living testament to the power of my God. And
You are. You are.
what?
You are.
No, no,
Or
no,
he's.
no. Like I was speaking in his terms, like
Oh.
in his context. And Lee Stone King was basically boasting on the fact that, hey, listen, my God is capable of bringing me back from the dead. I am alive because of my God. Can your
Right.
God do that? Um, I mean, that was the ultimate sense that the UN speech felt like, but in the context of just the speech and just his testimony, it was God performs miracles. And for me, I'm like, okay, great. I work with people who are dead and dying a lot. I've seen more people die than I care to, and list off.
Right.
And I've been doing this on and off for 11 years, and I've also have a deep history of family members who are in the medical field, and we hear all these stories of the grapevine of all these miracles that happen in medicine, and yet medical providers seem immune to this. And
Immune, as in how?
Well,
It doesn't convince.
I always say I'll never see a supernatural event simply because I carry a phone on me, and my first reaction is to film it. And because if I have video evidence of it, it probably doesn't exist.
But how many have you seen? How many how many are out there of how many videos of miracles are there out there?
I believe there are zero because I haven't seen any that are convincing of a miracle.
Me either.
Yeah.
Either.
And this was one of those things where my a pastor friend of mine was like, "Hey, here's a real testimony of a real miracle, of real intervention from God. Check it out." And that's why I did the response video to it.
Wait, was this the Lee one, the Lee Stoneking one?
Yes. Oh. And so if we can't witness miracles, we can't investigate them, and we can't repeat them, and there doesn't seem to be any causal link between chance and the miraculous, then I'm finding a hard time determining that the miraculous exists.
Okay, that's good. Now, what about, number one, Lee Stoneking's deal, but
I think we can agree that his is kind of full of shit, for lack of better words.
I'm not convinced.
Okay.
I'm honestly not convinced.
And neither am I.
But
until evidence is presented that changes my views, I believe that.
But who cares? But who cares about his deal? Like, why?
And okay. So here's why I care, because in investigating a lot of his videos, he came up to it. Was after the sermon, everyone was speaking in tongues and stuff like that, and at the very end, he was laying on hands on people, and there was this woman there who was in late stage cancer, and he said, "Throw out your medicine, you are healed."
No, that's bad. That's not good.
And he said also, he was quoting Mark 16:18, where it clearly says that the believers shall drink poison and handle serpents, and they shall not be harmed. And he's telling the people within his flock, if you will, because he's an evangelist that goes around, and he goes to many different churches.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's deceiving people, is why you care. Yeah.
And he is causing people to leave what I would consider very rational. I mean, if prayer worked, we wouldn't need hospitals. Okay, I would go up to a scene, and I would go up to a 911 as an EMT, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I prayed, my leg's no longer broken." And I'll be like, "Oh, that's another one I can't bill."
Hey, let me say something real quick, and then hey, can you see the time?
Yeah, it's
can you see the time?
It's 7:16 here, so that's 8:16 for you.
Okay, you can say, I'd say in a few more minutes, and then we can continue. We'll do it again, or do it again and make it more formal, and say, hey, let's talk this long or whatever.
Okay.
But you said, if the prayer worked, then we wouldn't need hospitals. That's a good one. Now, I don't agree with that. And I don't think, according to a Christian's reality, so I don't think a Christian would even say that to you, would even say no. You know what I mean? Like, no, if we wouldn't need hospitals, because I think that the way God chooses to do it, and you can see examples of this even back in the Old Testament, and even though there are examples of the straight up ones, under the theocracy, the direct miracles. The only thing you didn't see was his hand. But I think that from being a Christian, my experience, and from the Bible and all this other stuff, not my experience being first, not my feelings being first, that that's not how God does it.
Well,
That's
I
just
mean, and I would,
it's not,
if I
it's
was
just
a
not how he does
Christian, I would argue the contrary. Um,
Wait, you mean?
in well, did Jesus not say that nothing's impossible through me? That Jesus also said that diseases and illnesses are demons and afflictions of the soul.
No, that part,
No,
no, that part, no,
well,
no.
the things like the lame and the blind are because of demons, and he's casting them out, and that's why his curing is effective, which isn't
Yeah,
contrary to germ theory.
but not all of them. But that's not what he's. That's not what he's not saying that all of it. He never said that all diseases and all sicknesses are from. And okay, let's say he did, just for the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't mean that there's a devil or there's a demon sitting there taking his hand, or taking some tool or some magical ray or something and making your cells do this or do that. I mean, it just doesn't. It's that's in a biblical
Right. It's
context.
great. It's
Maybe.
it's contrary to what the Bible says. Yeah, I agree.
Wait, no. What do you mean? It's
Well, I
not
mean,
contrary.
Jesus. I mean, in the sense that when he was curing the sick and the blind and the maimed, it was said it three times in the sense that these are demons, these are afflictions, these are because of sin. And
No. He didn't say they're because of sin. No. He didn't say that. He said some of them. Some of them he said, like the lady with the whom Satan has bound. He said with the lady with the issue of blood. And then some of the people, like so and so's wife or whatever, had a fever, and he just rebuked the fever. I mean, he didn't say it was because. So there are instances where he healed somebody and it says nothing about a demon or nothing about any, and he never made a capturing statement to say that every sickness and whatever is because of a demon or whatever. And the point I was
right,
getting
but
to is
it's
that.
inferred and it's implied, and also, I mean, it also goes back down to, well, everything is possible through me, and a lot of people will attribute that, through the advocacy of prayer that Jesus kind of steps forth in Matthew and Mark, and that
Jesus what?
Jesus kind of set forth as like through me, nothing's impossible.
Yeah, I
Like,
believe that.
and with that, that
Okay,
is a
I'll get.
very seems like a very testable thing.
I got you, but okay, so then, but you're getting that from the Bible. Number one, remember that you went there. You're getting it from the Bible. So
Right.
it did, but was there? Did the apostles do try to do miracles and fail? Did that ever happen in the
Well,
Gospels?
if we're looking at the book of Acts, for example, where they received the gifts of the
No,
Spirit,
before that. No, I'm just saying, because we're the apostles did the miracles too in the Gospels, and they cast out demons and all that other stuff. But there was times where they were doing miracles and all of a sudden one didn't work. So I'm just saying that kind of keeps it from being captured as far as, oh, every time it's going to work and
no,
whatever.
and I wouldn't even say even if
I'm saying,
it's immensely inconsistent. Okay, even if 1 out of 100 people who pray regrow their leg,
yeah,
that's still 1 out of 100 people
yeah,
that did the impossible. And even if it was
right,
1 out of 1 million that was able to regrow their leg,
yeah, right. So
that
then the issue is why. The issue is why, or what? I don't understand.
well, if we're trying to
What,
demonstrate that there is a direct correlation between prayer and or asking God for any kind of request and actually performing the impossible. And I've seen Christians who claim that they could fly, regrow limbs,
uh,
um, talk in different languages that they never heard of.
yeah, but that
There,
doesn't that does
there's
but that doesn't do anything to the character of God or the validity of the Bible because somebody says something. Oh, I'm a Christian, and that's why I said in the beginning, you have to qualify a Christian. You have to go by what the Bible says and so on. You can't just because someone says they're a Christian and they can fly. Oh well, that unsubstantiates prayer and all this other stuff. And it, because the thing is what we're doing is we're saying, it, you know, like you said, they'll drink poison and do all this and that, or whoever says this mountain be removed and cast into the sea. You know, it's not. It's just not that simple. It's not that type of a book, and we're just saying that that's an absolute statement that has no qualifications, has no
Well,
context, didn't have anything to do with what happened at the time, you know, all that other
yeah.
stuff. Jesus's actual ministry, his ministry, which ended, you know. So as far as he actually doing it, I mean, it's just like I said, there's just there's more to it, and you know,
Okay.
they're really.
So, is there any way that we can? Is there any testable claims in the Bible? I mean, Mark 16:18 is very clear one where if you drink poison, hold serpents, they shall not harm you. Um, we can look at Genesis 30:39, for example, which is another one where it talks about the breeding practices of sheep and.
Okay, so who would who number one, like as if I was teaching a class, the drink poison, who does that apply to? Number one, I would ask, who does that
It
apply to?
within the context that I read, and Pentecostals will argue it. Well, there's a lot of things that are wrong with that, simply because we know that according to all historical documents, we know it was added later. From Mark 6 on, that was
Really?
all added after Mark was written, and it was written many years after. So a lot of people are, and that's
Oh
very
man.
good reason why they throw out you drink poison and it shall not harm you, because
Okay. The benefit of the doubt. I mean, forget that part. I mean, and ahead of time, if we're gonna go to all these parts and oh, this part was later and all this other stuff, then yeah, then there's just no point in defending anything. But I mean,
I mean
okay,
but it doesn't
throw that out
stop
there.
the fact that people are trying to attribute it as an actual testable claim. Now we can obviously go back and say, okay, thou shalt not test the Lord, but then we have very clear things such as the prophet trying to convert all the people from Baal, saying, "Oh, you need to just pray louder, pray to your gods better." You know, my God could clearly set this on fire, yours can't.
Right.
We have the
Wait,
numerous amounts of times in
I don't get.
Exodus.
I don't get that example. What you're saying by that example of the Mount Carmel thing.
What's that?
The Elijah and the water and the prophets of Baal. I don't get what you're saying about that. I don't
Well,
get it.
when it comes to can we test the validity of God, and Elijah
Yeah.
clearly tested his God against the Baal gods and won
Uh,
very clearly, um, and was able to
okay.
perform a miraculous event, and they couldn't. Um,
Right.
we have things along the lines of
So that, but
Exodus, of
no, but
where
what does that mean though? I don't get it. What that means?
it
His
means
God. Oh, I get what you're saying. It should be the same now.
it should be the same now. Yes.
Nope. Same God, but it just depends on him. It depends on the people. That's what I said earlier. We still haven't even talked about the qualifications of answered prayer. We still haven't, the gifting, what the purpose was. You know, that's through that was through the prophet. So that it doesn't apply to everybody. So a guy back in the day, I'm a practicing Jew. He couldn't have just went and just said, "Hey, I'm going to do this." I need to look at it again, but this is a question I would ask. You may get to it before me, but who did Elijah go to God and say, "Hey, let's go do this," or did God say do this? Or I mean, was there a
Yeah, he said
dialogue?
there's not enough believers in there. We need to convince people that there needs to be more.
But
There's not a.
right, but the Bible claims that he dialogued with God about it. So it was a two-person, if you will deal. So okay, so
Right.
then let's just go by that. So I tell you right now, I'm not going to just go and say, oh, because I believe in God, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go heal this person, because I might have fears and this and that, and I might know God, I might not know God, or just okay, just take it to something big like the Elijah thing. The point I'm making is no one's just going to go and do that. and it's not going to work like that, because like
Well,
in Acts in different places, it said God did many miracles through the hands of Paul. God did many miracles through the hands of Paul. So
right, and
you
there
know,
are plenty street evangelists, and there's plenty of
right.
faith
But
healers out there that will attest that what they're doing is actually just as miraculous, if not
okay,
more.
but that demonstrates right there, again, according to the Bible, that it is untestable. It is untestable because according, you can't just do that by your own will or whatever. I mean, it's
So
like the
if it's
go ahead.
untestable, then how did you detect the untestable? How did you detect the undetectable?
Wait, what? How did you detect the undetectable?
Yeah, how do you know that God is the one performing these miracles if he at all exists? And if he is completely untestable, how did you
Yeah.
determine that any feelings that you may have or any improvements of well-being that you may attribute to was in direct result to God?
Because well, many reasons. Um, because I mean, oh, let's see, what time is it?
8:30 for you.
Okay, that's perfect. So how do I know that any of the stuff happened to me, and the experiences that I had, the stuff that's happened to me? How do I know it's God? Right.
Right. How do you correlate
Okay.
causation with correlation?
Okay, that's good. Let's leave it right there because I got to go. And is that okay with you? Do you want to? Can we? I think that's a perfect thing.
I think if you want, we can bounce emails back and forth, and we can do this again. Actually,
The same thing we're
is
doing right now. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, I was up too close.
yeah, we could, yeah. I want to make dinner for the little one, and we'll go from there.
Oh, that's what you're. Okay, you're saying that. Okay, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I gotta. Um, and now this time, maybe this time, like you said, through emails, we can have it more planned ahead of time and say, hey, let's do it at this time and whatever. So on your computer, did any people watch, or how did that work?
Yeah, yeah. There was just several viewers coming in and out and stuff like that, and there's a chat that people interact with and stuff like that, and I'll post this on YouTube, and people will they'll comment on it from there.
Cool. So yeah, if that's okay with you, I'm thinking not this coming weekend. I have a crawfish boil. um, maybe the following weekend after that, as far as I can see, maybe actually on a Sunday, which I blew. But like you said, we can email back and forth about it.
Okay, sounds great, and we'll have a more formulaic structure, and everything will be good. It was a pleasure
Awesome.
talking with you, Justin.
Yes, it was likewise.
Alrighty, very good. Have a good one.
You too.